typically, if you use the duplicate lead matching capabilities in LeanData and also use them to merge, you're using this to preserve or prefer one set of values over another. So let's say you have a new duplicate come in, it has newer values, so generally you want to take those newer values and overwrite any older values. But what if you have an exception to that? Let's say there's one specific field with a particular value or set of values that you always want to preserve. For instance, let's say a lead comes in and it gets to the sales qualified status after going through some qualification stages. Any new duplicates that come in, you don't want to necessarily backtrack and overwrite that status field with an earlier value. So if it reaches a sales qualified status, you want to preserve that and keep that, even though technically that's the older value. So how would you accommodate for that? So here's one way to do that. You can see here I have a graph. New leads come in, we look for duplicate lead matches. If we find any, we merge them together. That's pretty straightforward as is. But how do we accommodate to preserve a specific value on a specific field? So I'm going to move this over to give myself a little bit more room. And I'm going to add a decision node, and specifically a true-false decision node. And I actually want the duplicate version of that. This is very important. So we'll go for the duplicate lead version. And what this is going to look for is it's going to look for a specific value on a field on the existing duplicate. And what I'm going to do here is look for a value of sales qualified. So I'll go ahead and do SQL question mark, and I will set my conditions such that I'm looking for the status field equal to sales qualified. And you can list multiple values here if you need to preserve multiple values. And I'm going to go ahead and click done. So if the existing duplicate does not have an SQL status, then it's actually okay and we can overwrite that because it's not a value that we need to preserve. We just want to preserve the SQL or sales qualified status in this example. So in that case, if it's not SQL, we can go ahead and overwrite whatever value happens to be in there. But what if it is SQL? What do we do in those scenarios? Well, what we are going to do is go to my action node bar, go to update lead, drag that in, and send all of my leads that match into an existing SQL into this update lead node. What we're going to do is take the SQL value and write that onto the incoming lead. That way, even though we're technically taking the values from the newer record, we are first ensuring that we overwrite it. So status. And what we want to do here is we want to preserve the value from the duplicate. So instead of just entering a value here, what I'm going to do is insert, click variables, and I'm going to look for a value that is on the matched lead. And specifically, I'm going to take the value and preserve whatever is in the status field of the matched lead. Matched lead status, hit insert. So what this is doing, it is updating the incoming record with whatever value is found on the duplicate. So I will just describe this a little bit more clearly. We'll do update status field. And I will go to advanced settings, and instead of end of flow, I'm going to send that to my merge duplicate lead. Okay, so just to recap, in both cases, we are going to merge the new lead with the existing duplicate. But in the case that the existing duplicate is an SQL, we want to make sure that we first take an action to preserve that value such that even if there's an overwrite, it still maintains the value that we want. So hopefully that was helpful, and you don't have to use it in this specific scenario, but you can adapt this to fit your needs.